I'm Hunter Wade at the Athletes Lounge podcast, and I'm here with my guest.
Mark Rohrer from Gibson Southern High School, boys basketball coach.
So, Coach, just jumping right into it, what do you think your team outlook is? So far, I guess in preseason.
Sure. And we've had, this is year three for me at Gibson Southern. So these guys have been in the program, with me specifically, and our current staff, our assistants have basically stayed the same throughout my time here. So there's just a little more familiarity with, me and the kids and our expectations. So I thought we had a really good summer. Things kind of really start in June, and we had really good availability by our guys to get a good look on what we think this upcoming season can look like for us. And to be honest, we started off, it was a lot like our season last year started. We looked like we'd never picked up a basketball in our lives, and we kind of struggled our first couple. We do all these summer shootouts, you have some practices, and you go play games. But it's weird because you're playing 3 or 4 games in a day. It's not like your normal season. But we started off really slow, had some concerns, and just made some minor adjustments. And that's what summer basketball is for. And I thought in the middle we looked a lot better. We started, you don't want to say summer wins and losses mean a whole lot, but we started winning a couple games against some pretty good teams. And then the last week or so of the summer, we looked really good. We looked like a team that could be one of the top in the conference. I think one of the top teams really around the area, regardless of class. And we are very excited about the group that we have for this upcoming season.
So, you've been in a couple different stops. You've been to Southridge and South Knox previously. How has your coaching style kind of evolved over those stops, or just over the years in general?
For sure. And, that South Knox job was my first head coaching when I was at Evansville Bossy for 3 years with Shane Burkhart. Two of them while I was in college, and I was his assistant and JV coach, and then one my first year of teaching. But that South Knox job, it was really, I learned a whole lot there and had some great support with administration, assistant coaches, players there. My first season there, we started 2-15. Now we were playing a lot of freshmen and sophomores, kind of the start, and we actually won. I've still said it. I've not seen a team start 2-15 in a season, but win their last 4 regular season games, and that's what we did there, and kind of like got our footing after a little while. And we had 5 seasons. My last 5 seasons there, where we won 17 or more games. Just kind of found what I thought my style was going to be, and able to figure out the expectations offensively, defensively, philosophies with how I want to, coach and practice, relationships with kids, all of those different things that go into coaching that are really important. And so, I learned a lot those 6 years there, and did make some major changes, I feel like, just with philosophies on a lot of different things during that time. And after 6 years, we won a couple sectionals. I decided to take a job at Southridge High School. And at Southridge, I was fortunate to, again, have a really great administration, have a great coaching staff for those 3 years, have some just incredibly talented players. Had 3 really nice seasons there. The final season, we made it to the Final Four to the semi-state. Colson Montgomery was almost a 2,000-point scorer, and he's probably knocking on the door of playing in the major leagues. So that was different. I didn't have any players. So we had good players at South Knox, but nothing where you just say like, "Hey, Colson, you go score now." And so yeah, we were kind of spoiled there with him for a few years, but again, really enjoyable time there. And then now at Gibson Southern, I'm always adjusting. I talk about self-reflection all the time. And I self-reflect, whether it's in, basketball, whether it's in my day job now is totally different. I'm a guidance counselor here at the high school. I'm assistant athletic director. So I'm always kind of self-reflecting on what are things that I can do to improve on, what are things that I could do to help kids more, to help families more. And so, yeah, I've made some probably minor adjustments over my time here, but still, same kind of philosophies where you want kids to enjoy this experience. You want kids to enjoy the high school experience, and you want them to care a lot about it. And you want to have success as a team and as a program. But, really it boils down to the life lessons, the different things that we want to help prepare them for when they leave Gibson Southern High School, when they leave the basketball program and leave the school. And, hopefully we're doing at least a respectable job and a good job at doing that.
So you mentioned how your philosophy's changed. Without giving away too much of what you like to do, I guess, what do you, what is your, I guess, how you play offense,
So
defense?
here's a good defensive one. My first couple years, the way I would describe it is, and so these were my first 2 years at South Knox. I got the South Knox job on my 23rd birthday, so I was a kid basically still, and my defensive identity and philosophy was basically I didn't have one. Play 2-3 some, play 1-3-1 some, play man to man some. We just did a little bit of everything, and it worked that second year. Especially we made a jump from going 6-16 to 17-6, and so there were some good things with that. But I just really didn't have a set defensive identity that I wanted to follow, and I ended up hiring a former Division II assistant coach. He was in the Division II ranks for 8 years. David Burkett, he is the South Knox head basketball coach right now, and still. And David really, I don't want to say like we probably challenged each other with our philosophies and with our defensive principles, but he was a man-to-man only. He was a specific defensive principles, and I think we kind of meshed. Like some of the things that I like to do and then some of the things that he liked to do, we kind of put together to form our true defensive identity. And again, I'm still trying to make adjustments and still trying to improve those things. But I mean, I would say over the last 8 or 9 years on the defensive end, there's not been really anything that I've changed. We have specific ball screen principles, we have specific post principles, transition defense principles, and we teach those things in the off season. We teach those things on the first day of practice. We teach those things on the last day of practice. So, on the defensive end, without I could sit here and talk about defensive principles for hours, but we really do have some specific things that we teach our kids, and obviously we make adjustments depending on scouting reports. And you're going to play Trent Sicily, top 50 player in the nation, much differently than you're playing other guys. So we make adjustments, but for the most part, we have a pretty specific defensive principle that we stick to. On the offensive end, I've always been one, and I study other coaches a lot. Again, I already mentioned that I self-reflect, but I feel like I'm a lifelong learner that, I try to study other coaches. I'm an Illinois basketball fan. My parents both went to Illinois. I am a huge Brad Underwood fan. I think one of the most impressive things about Brad Underwood over the years is that as I've studied him, he is not afraid to make adjustments to his coaching philosophy and style. So quick one on, at Stephen F. Austin, he was the ultimate full court press, denying everything, trying to get as many steals as possible. They ran this very unique offense that was kind of a pinch post play from 15 and very, you could mix players everywhere, positionless type of offense. And he's really changed that at Illinois just to fit the Big Ten style, to fit his personnel. And so I look at somebody like that. I'm like, wow, okay, that's one of the best college coaches in the nation. And he adjusts depending on who he's playing and who he's got personnel wise. Bill Belichick kind of does that same thing with the Patriots. That's been, well documented that he can morph his team to make sure that they are going to be successful from week to week. We do a little bit of that offensively. We say there's different layers, kind of like an onion to it, that, we want to play in transition sometimes, but we want to play really slow sometimes. We want to be hard for teams to scout against. We have a bunch of set plays that, we try to expose defensive weaknesses, but we also try to highlight our offensive skill sets. And in high school, it's much different than college. We're not recruiting our players. We're developing our players. But, this is a great example this year. We're going to probably have 5 players that are 6'3" to 6'4" and taller. My first year at Gibson Southern, we had a senior class that about everybody was under 6 foot. So we're
short that year.
Yeah, they were not very tall that first year. So we really kind of formulate an offense, and that's what summer is for, to really figure out what we feel like is going to fit our team best. And basketball has changed. It's changed in the last 10 years. What styles of offenses, analytics have changed on, what works best. And so we've kind of changed through those times and through our personnel with that on the offensive end. So, Yeah, things that have changed. I would say defense 10 years ago, I really started finding my defensive identity. Offensively, we still make some adjustments depending on our personnel. And then I think just the overall philosophy that I've had, I don't know. My kids have probably changed me. I've got a 6 and an 8 year old, and I was young, I was dumb, and I was like so win crazy, and so just everything had to do with wins and losses those first few years. And I lose a game now. Now my older one, he's getting used to it a little bit more. He, being 8, he kind of gets if you win or lose. But when my kids were younger, even they didn't care if I came home and we had won by 25 or won on a buzzer beater or vice versa. So I think that's kind of changed just my perception on coaching, and I try my best. I self reflect on how do I treat our kids, what kind of conversations do I have with our kids, how much are our kids enjoying this, what kind of, I know it's a cliche thing, but again, what kind of men are we trying to develop, and have them be good members of society whenever they leave our program and when they leave Gibson Southern.
So you mentioned that your kind of philosophy changes with personnel a little bit. So are there any skills that you obviously there's like like the 5 or 6 skills, shooting, ball handling. Is there any
Sure.
skill that you kind of put a premium on as opposed to others?
Whew, that's a loaded question. I think it's just been. I mean, defensively, I've never had an issue with kids not playing hard. And
Yeah.
I think that probably I probably watch more film with our team than most coaches, if not all coaches around the area. We break down film and we watch it like crazy. My wife sometimes is like, "How can you watch something 3 times?" And then we want to make sure we catch everything, and we want to make sure that we clip it to where we can relay things to our players. I've just never had any kind of issues with playing hard. So defensively, it's all about understanding and understanding very quickly, right? Like, you don't have time like you're taking a math test and all right, I got this question that's kind of stumping me. And I can sit here and think about it for 2 minutes before I start answering. And I was a math teacher for 10 years before taking this role. You don't have that luxury on the basketball court. You've got to be able to process situations at a very, very quick rate. And so I think you mentioned skills. I think most people would think like you're talking about offensive skills, but I think the defensive skill of um, being able to process information at a very, very quick rate and then applying the skills that we've tried to give them and the philosophies that we've tried to give them, that's just as much of a skill as being able to put the ball in the basket. So I think honestly, it probably starts there. I spend a lot of time with our middle school kids. Again, like it's probably more than most high school varsity coaches do. I spend about 12 to 15 days with them in the summer, and we spend so much time just going through those defensive principles, and that way it's quicker for them when they get to us freshman sophomore year that hopefully they have a better grasp on some of those things. So I think that's it. That's a big one on the defensive end. Offensively, um, you know, every team's going to have players with different roles and responsibilities, right?
Yeah.
You're never going to have a team with 5 perfect players. If you are, I haven't had one of those yet. You're not going to have 5 Colson Montgomerys on the court all at the same time. And I think kids, you want players that are multidimensional. That's a word I use a lot. So if I'm a really good shooter, well, I want to make sure that I continue to be a really good shooter, that I continue to bring that to the table for the team. But we talk about to our kids all the time, like if you are self-aware, I'm not a great ball handler, then you need to work on that. Make a weakness into a strength as much as you can. So, yeah, I think just being a complete offensive player is something that we strive for our players to have. But then again, still, it's not equal opportunity when you get to varsity basketball. It's not like, hey, every single player gets to shoot 5 times a game and everybody plays 10 minutes a game. So finding those roles for players and then getting kids to buy into that, again, like getting kids to buy in to the system or to their role, like that's a skill. Like that's a skill for us as coaches to be able to get kids to do that, but it's also a skill for the players to say, okay, I would love to be able to score 15 points a game, but I know my role to help our team is to get 3 or 4 assists a game and to get 4 rebounds a game or whatever the case may be. So, yeah, I think those are different skills than what most would think. Oh, yeah, everybody wants a good shooter. Everybody wants a good passer. Everybody wants a good rebounder. But you've got to have the defensive understanding and you've got to have understanding of your role to help the team as well.
So you kind of let me into something. How much do you try to keep the consistency between the middle school kids up to the high school? How much do you try to keep the terminology and all that consistent?
Exact same. I mean, we try, especially on the defensive end, for them to get exposed to some of that terminology as fast as they can and as much as they can. Again, I'm coming back to math. The more that you practice, like when you're really little, your math facts, the better you're going to be at your math facts as you get older. It's the same thing with defensive principles and even on the offensive end. I kind of explained to our coaches. We had a youth, so our middle school fifth through eighth grade teams, they started this past week, and I always host a coaches clinic for them or coaches meeting. We spend a couple hours, and I can't give everything that we do at the high school level in 2 hours to these guys, but one of the things that I always mention is they need to make sure they highlight what personnel they have. I always bring up the Zellers, like Gene Miller and Dave Omer. Whenever they're coaching the Zellers, they would have been crazy to hey, let's run dribble drive. I saw John Calipari run dribble drive at Kentucky. Let's try to do that with the Zellers. No, I mean, they're going to play post. They're going to play high-low basketball. It's kind of the same thing here. We've already mentioned that, my first year we had a bunch of sub 6 foot players. And then this year we're going to have a bunch of really tall players. So, I tell our middle school feeder coaches, they need to highlight their team's strength. I give them kind of a series of plays, kind of the basic ones that we always run at the high school, and say, figure out the 2 or maybe figure out the 3 that work best for your team. And but then I like to give them some freedom as well. Every team is just going to be different, and I don't want to micromanage too much and say hey, these are the only things you can run. So yeah, we try to give. It's a combination. It's a balance of that we want to give as much high school philosophy that we can to our feeder kids and to our younger kids, but at the same time, give those coaches the freedom to coach the team that they have.
So yeah, you kind of mentioned that you had the team that was all under 6 foot, and now you have a team that's all around that 6'3", 6'4". Which team would you have switch more on defense?
Well, and again, that comes back to kind of our core defensive philosophies. We don't switch any away from the ball screens.
Okay.
So a down screen, a flare screen, a double screen, unless our players just absolutely get leveled and we have to switch, we teach to not switch. And so it really doesn't matter that much in that aspect. We switch a whole lot on ball screens, though. And so really, it's just the difference is going to be on the switch, what happens next. If we switch a ball screen, maybe you have 2 little guys that are switching. Well, they don't have to switch back. Or in this case, this year, if we have 2 kids that are both 6'3" or 6'4" and they switch, maybe we don't have to worry about switching back. It also has to do with how we would guard the post. If we've got I'll start using names. If we've got Sean DeLong, and Sean's about 5'8", he's our running back for the football team right now. If Sean's guarding the other team's best player, and then they go set a ball screen, and Max Wilson, who's going to be one of probably our best big guy, he's about 6'4". So when they switch, and Sean switches onto a guy that's much bigger than him, much taller than him, we're probably going to front the post with him. Yeah. If we have Max and Connor Marvel's about Max's size. If those 2 switch, we may not need to front the post with Connor. So yeah, the switching side of it is we have our set defensive philosophies with how we guard away from the ball and how we guard ball screens as well. And so that really wouldn't change things a whole lot.
So I guess when did you learn that you like basketball and want to get into basketball coaching? I guess what's your basketball, I guess?
Cool. Yeah. So that's a loaded question too, because it's going to take us way back. So my dad, He was not. My dad was not a great athlete, but he has such a love for sports. Me and him are actually. I know I had mentioned being an Illinois fan. He was in the marching band, which is where he met my mom. My mom was a band director for about 30 years, high school band director. My dad was in the marching band, which is where they met because he wanted to be close to the sports games. He wanted to be able to travel with the teams and, be sitting on the floor during the basketball teams because he's just a crazy basketball fan
Oh, that's the
or
perfect
sports fan
move.
in general. Yeah, yeah. So he did. I went to Bar Eve in high school and all the way growing up, kindergarten on up. And my dad, he did the radio for all the Bar Eve games, all the Bar Eve basketball games growing up. So I kind of like, I would ride with him to the road games, and then on the way home we're talking about the games, and I was just always around basketball. It's almost like you hear like a coach's son. Well, I was the radio guy's son. Going to the games and having the conversations with him. And that's really where like my love for sports, I think, developed. And then as I got older, you get closer to high school, people started asking, what are you interested in? I was like, well, I'm really good at math and I love basketball. So like I kind of knew as a freshman in high school that we had some great teachers at Bar Eve that were also coaches. And again, I already mentioned my mom being like, she was a band director for 30 years. And you just see the positive impact. I could see this at age 14, the positive impact that those people have on kids. And so I knew then that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a high school basketball coach and math teacher. My teaching has now moved into the guidance counseling world, which I do really enjoy. It's way different, but I love school systems and love being able to help kids and help families, and I feel like I can do that in this role. So, but yeah, that was at an early age that I knew I wanted to do it, and I was fortunate to play for a Hall of Fame coach in Brian Hughes and learned so much from the Bar Eve program, learned so much from the Bar Eve youth program, being in that at a young age, and just how they kind of went about things. Bar Eve it's very well known and well documented. It's one of the best, regardless of class, one of the best programs in the entire state. We had a state finals run my senior year. I was the point guard, and unfortunately, we lost in the state finals. But just all of those experiences. Just they solidified that is what I wanted to do when I got older. So yeah, I just had really great experiences with that. I've had some really heartbreaking experiences, obviously, with like certain losses in March and different things like that. But yeah, I don't think I'd change anything or trade any of that. And you're not into this to get rich or anything when you say I want to be a high school basketball coach and teacher one day. It's just you're in it for the love of the game. You're in it for the love of small communities like this. Again, Bar Eve, South Knox, Southridge, Gibson Southern. I don't like. I have no interest in wanting to go to a school in Indianapolis and you have 150 people. I still remember Eric Gordon is my age, graduated in 2007. We were playing at Hinkle Fieldhouse in December, and Eric Gordon was playing Etwan Moore's team. And that actually was the state finals preview for that year in 4A. And I still remember our coach, we stayed the night and we went to that game and there was like 50 people in the stands. There's like, multiple future NBA players playing. There's 50 people in the stands. And so, yeah, I've always, I love the community aspect of things. And so, yeah, there was just very young age that I knew that this is what I wanted to do. And I've been fortunate to be able to do it as long as I have.
You mentioned, of course, a little bit off topic. You're an Illinois basketball fan. Favorite year? The favorite
Well, the
year?
'05. I mean,
Oh
I
yeah,
was a sophomore in high school. The D Brown, Darren Williams, Luther Head, James Augustine, Roger Powell, all those guys. That was an amazing time to be an Illinois basketball fan, obviously. So yeah, that year was really special.
yeah. I'm a Dallas kid, so the fact that Darren Williams came all the way up here, or I'm a Dallas native, so the fact that Darren Williams ended up coming all the way up here or up there for schools.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
well, yeah,
Did you know? Here's a good Darren Williams one because my dad has season tickets for Illinois basketball and football. His freshman year, he had an okay freshman year. The announcers a lot of times would call him Duran because of the
yes.
way his name was. His name is spelled. I think it's Deron. They called him Duran for like his whole freshman year, and he finally like kind of said, "Hey, my name is Darren." So yeah, that's a good Darren Williams story.
Well, David, when he went to the Jazz, he definitely he does say Duran. He says what you just said. He doesn't say his right name right. I can't even mess up his name now
Right, right,
because
right.
because Duran's so like programmed. But no, he doesn't. Or no, he says the. Oh my goodness, I'm falling apart here. He
You're fine.
says Stern says Duran. He keeps saying it, and it's hilarious. It's
Yeah, yeah.
and no, but his name is De'Aaron. That is how it's said. So you mentioned, you talked about, what philosophy lies, what you like. How how early into like this type, I guess this early in the preseason or this kind of year, do you know what you want to do with the team you have?
Well, again, I think we really developed that in June,
Yeah,
and so that's we're gonna you know we've got about 20 guys in open gym right now. We're able to do 2 days a week for a couple hours each of those days, and about half of them are freshmen, and so it's really nice to get those guys up to speed. And again, you're just talking about terminology and different philosophy type things like that. But we do have quite a few of our top players, guys in the starting lineup that we know are going to be starters and really important players for us that are still in football season. So,
yeah,
I've always, it was so unique coming from South Knox. South Knox didn't have football at Bar Eve, didn't have football growing up. And then I went to Southridge. And that first year that I was at Southridge, they went to the state finals in baseball. So like June was just wiped out. Didn't have them
yeah,
at all in June. That season, football went to the semi-state. And so I still remember there's a couple guys that like I went up and entered, not me jokingly, but like, I kind of like said, hey, how's it going? I've never really seen you play basketball yet, but we're going to play a game in 7 days. And so that was so unique to like not really know what we were going to run at that point, 7 days before our first game. But as now in year three, and even then, like in year three at Southridge, they made a semi-state run again my last year, but we kind of knew at that point what we were going to run because of summer, because of post experience with these guys, things that they ran in JV, we're going to run in the varsity now. So yeah, I think that when do you know what you're going to run? We know the plays that we run to run. I was actually talking to one of our fifth grade coaches yesterday about this. I use the term free play a lot. Like most people say motion, or most people would say like, "Hey, we're running dribble drive or whatever it is." I say free play. Now that's a little scary to give some kids that kind of freedom to say like, "Hey, just free play now." Like it's
yeah.
not recess basketball, right? It's not playground pickup basketball, but to an extent it kind of is. But we try to get our kids to figure out like what's gonna work for us against good teams, especially when we are quote free playing. So we developed that I thought this summer because I know what kind of set plays we want to run. I know what kind of continuity offenses we want to run, but our kind of free play was developed I thought very well. Our guys, we kind of all figured that out as June went on to know now again, once we get started with the season and we are full strength with all the football guys, we'll kind of know what we want to get accomplished on the offensive end.
So is there how much or at what school have you kind of had to scout the hallways and scout other sports the most for to try to, I guess, recruit from, within?
I can't think of many situations where um, the right basketball players haven't played.
Okay.
I think that there are here's what's changed in high school sports is the amount of travel
Yeah.
that my 8-year-old's doing travel baseball, and we got our schedule for their travel season in the spring and summer, and we're going to be going 12 different places or something crazy like that. So I think that amount of travel, same with AAU basketball. There's different football things that, football is kind of hard year round, but there's camps, there's different ways that it's for one of two things. It's to make kids better for some people, but for others, it's about making money, which is that's
Yeah.
very unfortunate. That's part of the game. It's part of it. But I think that is making it really hard for kids to be three-sport athletes.
Yeah.
I think we have a lot more two-sport athletes here at Gibson Southern. At Southridge, there was just a ton of three-sport, and I am really glad we we do not have many just one sport guys here. I think that's important. I think it's important for them to have their body move in different ways. And it's not just the same old in basketball. You kind of hear that with just, doctors and things, and see that in research and see that on articles about, kids' bodies breaking down when they're just doing the same repetitive motions over and over. I also think this is a bizarre thing, but I think that it's important for kids to have other head coaches. I think that like them just hearing me for 365 days of the year is not always healthy. So I'm very self-aware of that, and I try to encourage our kids to go play for Nick Hart in football, or to go play for. We got a new baseball coach
Yep.
this year, but just different things like that. I think are really important for them to just hear probably a lot of the same things, but just from different people and just in different ways. So I don't think it's circling back to the question of how much do we have to make sure kids want to play the sport of basketball, or to play like whenever we think they should play. That just doesn't happen a whole lot, but I do see it being harder and harder for kids to play three sports because, and this is not a fault of the high school coaches whatsoever. I could talk about this for a while. I kind of wondered from the outside looking in, does Nick Hart really like football being great and basketball, kind of taking a back seat because it helps him out in some way? That was before I got here. He's the best. Like Nick is amazing with that, and he is such a great supporter of the basketball program. So there's like that just doesn't happen here. It doesn't happen many places. It happens some places, but it doesn't happen many places where the high school coaches are trying to pull kids to focus more on their one sport and to not play. I've been fortunate that I've not been a place that it's been like that. The travel coaches, the outside of school coaches, that's a little bit different, and they're not all bad. They are not all bad like people, but it just makes it harder. I should mention outside trainers as well. You should quit this sport so you can lift more. I mean, you can lift anytime. So, anyways, that is that's something that I see it becoming harder and harder for kids to play three sports than what it maybe had been in the past.
Winding down here, just actually my last question: is there anyone at Bar when you played at Bar Reeve? Is there anyone you played against that has stood out to you? I guess in the years since.
Guys that I played against. Okay, so I played against both Zellers, the
Yeah.
first two Zellers,
Yeah.
Luke and Tyler, and then I coached against Cody whenever I was at Bossy. My first ever varsity points field goal, I should say, because I played some as a freshman, but I honestly only made free throws. I never scored a bucket. The first play, Barry Boys plays Washington in the opener. This was Luke Zeller's senior year. He was Mr. Basketball. They won the state finals. That's the year he hit the half court shot. The first play of the game was a backdoor play for me. I caught the ball. I'm pivoting and turning towards the basket, and I see out of the corner of my eye Luke coming to probably send my shot 15 rows up into the stands, and I shot it from my waist. I caught it and basically just shot it from my belly. But yes, to make sure it didn't get blocked, and it went in. That was my first ever varsity point, trying to not get blocked by Luke Zeller. Tyler he was so talented, and their team was so good, but we did beat them both my junior and senior year. Tyler's group, that was, honestly, pretty big upsets. Just because I mentioned our team here, we had Nick Dungeon. He was my next door neighbor, one of my best friends. He was 6'6", and he played at USI. We were the same grade. We played together all the way growing up. But the rest of our team was about 5'10". We were all a bunch of 5'10" little guards, and we did beat Washington both my junior and senior year. So yeah, I'd say the Zellers were two. I do remember AJ Graves my freshman year. He played at Butler. That Graves family is very well known within the state for basketball. And my freshman year, his senior year, he guarded me for about a 4 or 5 minute stretch, and I remember thinking, this dude could probably take the ball from me anytime he wanted. I was just very thankful he didn't. So yeah, those are probably the ones that stick out the most from playing days.
So you open against Memorial on November 28th, right?
Yep.
Uh, really, that's all I have. Is there anything you want to get in here before we I guess exit? There we go.
Yeah, no, that's pretty good. I enjoyed that. I didn't really storytell too much. I'm kind of a storyteller. My wife knows that. My assistants know that. We didn't get a whole bunch of previous game storytelling, but yeah, I appreciated the time and talking about our philosophy some and talking about some of the different things that we're trying to get accomplished here at Gibson Southern as well. Because this is a great school, great athletic program. We've got a lot of great families and community and kids and lucky for me, we've got a lot of really talented basketball players this year and for hopefully many years as well that will make me look like a smart coach whenever I just let them free play offensively. So,
Well, this has been Hunter Wade at the Athletes Lounge podcast. This has been Gibson boys basketball head coach Mark Rohrer, and thanks for coming on, Coach.
all right, appreciate it, man.
Hey guys, this is Hunter Wade at the Athletes Lounge podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe where you can. Thanks.